Now, somebody asked a couple of days ago about seeing some footage of me actually batch painting. And I have to admit, on the one hand, I get the question. On the other hand, it's intensely boring because the footage would be just me doing the same thing over and over on a handful of miniatures. So what I am going to do, is put my light on there, go through some of the principles of batch painting because it is a method that will help you get more models on the table more quickly. So in essence, it's kind of like how the division of labor in a factory works. Rather than one guy running through all the individual steps of making nails, one guy preps the iron, one guy puts it through the machine, so on and so forth. The idea here is that you're reducing the number of steps between each stage of completion. So, rather than open a paint, pour some out, get on your brush, paint one section on one dude, get out the next paint, and so forth, the idea is that you're going to save time and paint by mashing through as many of them as you can in one fell swoop. Now, I have actually painted an army like this before. The United States Army I mentioned for bolt action, I did this, and it is my record at the moment for most miniatures batch painted in one go, because it was 64 dudes where I did every single step one after the other. So here, I've got the poppy red that I'm going to use for the lenses on these dudes, and let's start blasting this into each guy. Now obviously, yeah, there we go. Already all over one of them. This will be a little bit easier if I don't have the camera in the way the whole time. But one dude, ding, and on it goes. This is not always the most entertaining way of doing these things. So it's a good idea if you've got a podcast or music or something that you like, maybe even a movie that you know super well that you don't need to see. I do quite like popping on Wrath of Khan when I'm doing my batch painting. So here we go. I've got 25 guys with me at the moment, and I am going to try and pop the eyes into all of them. Now, briefly as I'm working, what I'd suggest is that you are working out and rinsing your brush every 5 to 6 guys. It will depend a little bit on what color you're using and how much of it there is, because speed paint and indeed all paints will dry a little as you're working with them. So just work that out of the brush, rinse it occasionally, and then go back to what you're doing. All right, now we can start moving on to the next colors. Now, on some of these fellas, I have splurged over a little bit onto the face masks, like I was worried about, but part of the benefit to the batch painting method is that I know when it comes to the actual weathering stage, like one of the very final stages of this, I'm going to be coming back with a bit of white, and I will be doing some weathering with it. So at that point, I can come back and tidy up those faceplates. Instead of doing it now, saving it for a final stage, I'm saving myself a step there. I'm trying to keep this guy in shot as I work. Bit of a mission, but you get the principle. We are just smashing this on, not worrying too much about the parts that are going to be fixed up later. Save yourself the effort. Be a bit generous with these colors first, particularly when we are doing a large number of speed paints, the metallic speed paints. Remember intermittently on your little well to give them a wiggle with your brush so that you're stirring up the silver bits in there as well. So I'm now at 8 guys who've had their silver done, and now it's time that I've had to swap to some fresh broadsword silver, because the moment that these come out of the pot, they are starting to dry. So you want to make sure that you're not putting too much in your little well before you get started, because you don't want to waste. You want to try and avoid as much waste as you can. It's inevitable that some of it is going to end up dry in the little well. But once you start getting like a sticky kind of stringy stuff that's on the brush, then it's definitely time to give that stuff up. Don't add any more to it and try to thin it out, because you're just going to end up with more stringy bits. But yeah, this is the work. This is the part where it takes the longest. Okay, so that was 20 guys, and that is not the fun way of doing things, to be perfectly honest, but it is the fastest. So everybody's got their silver done on them now, And as well as the broadsword silver from the little bottle, I also used some polished silver from the funky markers. I just wanted a little bit of variety on some of the silvers, so the fact that this guy's got the Nuncio Vox, I did that with the marker. That was nice and quick. And also all my little Mark II guys who have the ribbed backs and fronts. Now I don't tend to do the ribbed back of the legs on the Mark III dudes in silver, but with these guys it just seemed thematically appropriate. So we smash that from the polished silver marker. That worked rather well. So now I get to do it with the gold. And I'll tell you what, I am really looking forward to those hoplite gold markers coming along, because I think that'll be a super quick way to do the trim on these dudes. Anyhow, I got to do it with the brush, and then I got to do all the other steps. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. And there, to my mingled shock and horror, is 19 legionaries dipped and ready to dry. I thought I had 20, and it wasn't until I was varnishing them, ready to give them the dip, that I realized, oh, hang on a second, I'm missing one. So I am one short in my calculations for how fast this is going to be. Oh dear, I'll just have to make it up. So yeah, this is, like I said, 20 is probably a lot to do in one go. I would suggest if you're looking at batch painting, then doing things in groups of 5. You know, if you don't have a time limit or something that you're working to, then 5's great, because there's a sense of accomplishment in getting these guys to this point, to the dip. So if you are doing, 5 fellas, and then you go ahead and they're all ready to be dipped or washed or whatever, once they are, air quotes, finished, it's a sense of satisfaction. 10 is where it starts getting a little bit tricky. That's a long stretch of work to wait for each reward. 20 might be pushing it. I think I'm just going to crack on in groups of 10 from now on. So, yep, quick update to let you folks know how I am doing with this little project. We've got kicked off, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the end of the week brings.